Okay, so today we're going to look at building the Apple iPhone. And if you take a look at your assignment on Brightspace, there are quite a few different dimensions for it. But primarily, the things we need to worry about the most are the fact that our artboard is set up to be 17 inches by 11. Um, the shell itself, the phone of the iPhone, the phone body is to be a little over 4 inches, 4.08. So we're going to come in around 4 inches. And then the corner radius of the iPhone is 0.6 inches. And it's a CMYK document at 300 DPI. So this is kind of where I'm headed. This is the one that I made. And I made all the elements of it, background, the whole 9 yards. So we're just going to take a quick look here, though. When I've got a project similar to this, I always try to make sure that I work as efficiently as I can. So as I take a look at this assignment, we've got to actually do an iPhone home screen, and we've got to do an iPhone control center. They're both the same illustration. The only thing that changes is the screen. So for, in the interests of consistency, making both of my illustrations as close as I possibly can, I kind of try to break this stuff down into its most common parts. So, if you look at it, we've got the same iPhone in both illustrations, but it's the screen that actually changes. So when I build this, I'm actually going to build the body of the iPhone with a black screen along with a black screen. And I'm going to make sure on it that I create what I'm going to refer to as the live area of the screen, which is the colored area that shows on top. So when I say the live area of the screen, I mean this area. So and my goal here is going to be that I'm going to build the iPhone just like this. But then, and I'm going to place that in a file for my home screen, and I'm going to place it in a file for my control center, so that if I need to make changes to the body of my iPhone, so long as the screen size doesn't change, nothing in that changes, all I've got to do is go back into one file, make those edits, and the phone is identical in both illustrations. So I'm actually going to create, the first time through, this piece of art, with all of its nice little details, the whole 9 yards. And then part of that is going to be this outline, which is going to be the screen for my two versions. And, I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm even going to create the top part of the iPhone, the icons at the top here in this file, but I'll probably have to copy these and paste them into the other documents. So, but I'm just going to sort of start this, probably not put all the detail into it, just to show you how I'm setting it up, and then kind of turn you loose on your own. So, but just to sort of reiterate again, the process I'm going to use is actually to create this black body of the iPhone. Then I'm going to place it in documents for the home screen and for the control center, and just build strictly those on top. And that way, that if I have to go back and make more edits to this phone body, which I will have to do, then I can go back and do that, and it'll just update into the other two files pretty seamlessly. So I'm going to build the phone, then I'm going to place it in the file for my home screen and for my control center, and build on top of that. This is the process that I'm going to use. I'm also going to build my screen, the screen design separately as a separate file, place it, and that's the general process I'm going to use. So I want to go ahead, and I've already got my, I'm going to close up a bunch of stuff here. So here's my phone demo folder, and I've got an assets folder where I put my stuff. And like I always, before you start any project, create a folder on your desktop, create an assets folder to put all of your elements in so that everything's together in one place. So that when you go to back up to your USB drive, your cloud storage, whatever you have, all you gotta do is grab the phone, in this case, the iPhone demo folder, and drag it into that other backup. So, so we're going to start like this. I'm going to go ahead and create a new document, and it's going to be print. And remember, when in Illustrator, when we grab one of these tabs along the top, it's actually going to set my color space, my raster settings the way they're supposed to be. If I click on web, you'll see that changes RGB color to 72. So print and 17 by 11, 17 inches wide by 11 tall. We don't need any bleed or anything else. We're going to set our guides like we always do. So I've created this. This will be the base of my iPhone. I'll save it in a minute. Let's go ahead and say create. And now, before I do anything else, Command R on my keyboard turns on my rulers, and I'm just going to drag a guide out for my horizontal and my vertical lines, unlock my guides, and select each of them, align to the artboard, and I'll just center up each of these. Lock them back down. And there's the center of my artboard. The iPhone body, the .ai file. Okay. And then I want to go ahead and create another layer here. First one's going to be my template layer. And on this layer, Command Shift P is for place. I'm just going to go find my template for the phone that I'm going to use. I'm going to place this, and I'm not going to pay attention where I'm placing it to start with. So here's our image. I'm not going to trim this down in Photoshop or anything. We only need this part of the phone. So I'm actually going to take and draw a rectangle around it, and then kind of zoom in here. And like I said, I know we want the body of the phone itself to be about 4 inches. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to forget about the buttons for the moment. And I'm just going to sort of pull the box in just to where I'm touching barely the edges. Don't pull it inside of it, just sort of right up to the edge. And just like everything else, we're using the images that we're using as a guide. We want to be as close as we can be to the actual object, but if we're not, we're going to be as spot on size-wise as we can, radius-wise, but this is a guide. And we're going to use Photoshop's tools just to make a good-looking illustration. So, if it's not pixel perfect, in my opinion, that's not the end of the world. But it does need to be really pretty darn close. So I've drawn this box right around the view that I need. And I'm going to grab my selection tool, select both the box I just drew as well as the background image, object, clipping mask, and make. And I cropped all the rest of this out of here. So the nice thing about a clipping mask is that when I select this shape, it doesn't take into account everything I clipped out, only the object that I clipped. So if I, now with this in mind, if I go up here to my preferences panel, I'm going to link my measurements, and I'm going to change. Remember, the width needs to be 4 inches, 4.08. I want to make it 4. It's probably going to be 0.08 when I go ahead and expose the buttons. But so I'm just going to make this, I'm making these dimensions like, make it 4 inches, which means the height is 8.19. So now I'm going to pull this over, and I'm just going to center this to my artboard. So remember, we're always centering our artwork to our artboard. We always want it in the middle. That way we know specifically where it's at. And when we have other units, that are kind of centered on the object, we can do the same thing with them. We can create them as a group and then center them on the artboard, and everything should fall right into place. So this is 4 inches wide, and it's centered to the artboard. So now that I've done that, you want to be careful here, but I'm going to double click, select just the bounding box now, and I'm just going to expose the buttons so that when I go to draw them, I have everything I need. All right. And then we're just going to, so this is on, remember we created layers. This is on our template layer. Actually, double click to leave isolation mode. On the template layer, let's go ahead, double click on that icon, template, and say OK. So we've created, there's our template that we're going to draw off of. And now this becomes our base artwork for all of our other pieces. So I'm going to do this. We're going to create the base. So I'm going to create the frame to start with. So let me open up. We'll go to layer 2, and we'll just call this the phone frame. And now I'm going to go onto this, draw a rectangle over top, and I'm just going to fill it with, I don't know, we'll make it gray for now. Because remember, we Command Y, we can go back and forth between outline mode and preview mode. Then I'm going to go back to outline mode now so I can see everything. And let's make the width of this 4 inches. Let's center it on our artboard so we know it's right in the middle. Not too bad. And then I'm going to go up here and make sure that, yeah, that's right about where I want it on top. Down here, and I want to pull this down to right about where I want it on the bottom, a little bit outside. All right. So now I've got my Command Y. Yeah. So I'm covering the iPhone exactly. Now, excuse me, like we said, our dimensions for the phone are 0.6 for the rounding on the corners. So I'm going to come back over to my properties panel. Other places to do this, but I just find this to be the simplest. These 3 dots in the bottom, more options. Right down here are the rounding. These are the rounding measurements. With them all locked, I'm just going to set this to 0.6. The tab key, and it fills in all the rest of them. And now if I Command Y again, oops, there we go. Now if I Command Y again, here's the outline of my iPhone. Pretty easy, pretty simple, huh? So now I'm going to look at the rest of this. And I've got the outer shell of the body made. So we're going to have, and see, these aren't right on the money, but like I said, we've got dimensions that we're to follow. And the image is just a guideline. It's just a guide for us to follow. We're going to get it close, but it's not going to be pixel on. So, we're getting it this is pretty good as it is, and I'm going to leave it here. I'm not going to worry about this little gap and then consistency. But so what I've got is the outside, and the case itself kind of comes up to this point. There's a highlight here. So see, I'm looking at probably 3 different shapes here. Then there's a black area in the phone that comes into the beginning of the screen, the LCD area. And so these are the 3. Let's see, we got the shell. The highlight is 2. The inside of this, the edge of the case is 3. And then the outside radius of the screen itself is 4. So I want to zoom in here and select my outline. And actually, before I do that, it is far easier to work. I'm going to use offset path tool to create these 3 different shapes, just so that they're exactly concentric all the way through. But right now my units are inches, and it's hard to work in inches. So at this point, I'm going to switch to pixels. I could go to points, but I'm just going to use pixels. So go to pixels for measurement, and we're going to select this. And then I'm just going to run off of, if I zoom in here, I'm going to run off the top as for my measurements. So I've got the outline selected. I'm going to go Object, Path, Offset Path. And I'm going to change this to -6. Because remember, with offset path, positive numbers go outside of the shape that we're offsetting. Negative numbers go inside. So -6. Let's double toggle the preview, and we can see that here's where 0.6 is. And it needs to be a little less. I'm also sort of starting to see some detail in here I didn't see before, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm actually going to go to this. If we zoom in on this, actually I can't zoom in while I've got this dialog up, but you can notice there's a little bit of a highlight inside of this. I'm going to go just to the bottom edge of that. So let's see, -6. Let's drop this to, raise it to -4. We'll go something like that. That's pretty close. I think we're actually seeing the rounded edge of the case here, kind of making a little bit of a a little bit of an artist's judgment, I guess. But we could do that. I mean, you can even go half pixels if you want. We could go 4.5. Let's see what we get. Kind of works. We'll just go 5. We'll keep it simple. -5 pixels, and we'll say OK. So now I've got my case, and now I want this line for the inside of my screen. So off of this object, excuse me, I'm going to go back to Object, Path, Offset Path, and this time we're going to drop 6, 7, 8. -7.5. Sometimes, getting things as close as you can is a good thing, just because they're the areas that really matter. And right now, my screen area really kind of matters to me. So I'm just going to make sure I get that. But we're using a top edge, and everything, the perimeter of this shape is all going to match this the dimensions precisely. So we got that, and let's say OK. So if we zoom back out a little bit here, now let's do this. I'm going to go back to my layers. I need a new layer because I want to keep my screen, and I'm just going to call it a screen mask because that's what it's going to be. So this inside shape, I'm going to cut from the layer that it's on, select my screen mask, and edit, paste in place. So now that's on that mask layer, and I'll just lock that down. And while we're at this, let's just go ahead and take care of a few of these other things. So I do have this little reveal here, and I've got this highlight I'm going to want to deal with. So here's our case, which is our phone frame. I'm just going to select this outside one, object, path, offset path, and we're going to go, I just want to bring this up to be as close on that white edge as I can. So 1.2. I know I'm probably being a little overly exact, but I don't know. So the highlight there sits right in the middle of that highlight. And I really don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but I think I'll go ahead and get a path. Now we'll leave this alone. I was going to make a path for this right here, this edge right here, but I can always come back and do that. Gives me a chance to show you something else. So there's where our highlight is a little more. I think if we overshoot it, it's not a bad thing. All right, say okay. Now that outline, I'm going to cut that from here, go up here. I'm going to create another layer. This is going to be my highlight. Select that layer, object, edit, paste in place. It's also Command-Shift-V. So paste that in place. I'm just going to lock that down because I don't want to be selecting things I don't want to select. And then I'm going to come back to the two shapes that are my phone frame, grab the both of those, go Command-Y, look at our preview. And these need to be a single shape as far as I'm concerned. So I guess I could make, since we're layering everything, I guess I could make this black. But let's do this. I'm going to copy this inside shape. Grab the both of these. And I kind of just make decisions on the fly as I go. You know, what's going to work best? I do like building things. Well, I guess something like this. I do like building them as close as they actually are in real life. I kind of tend to examine stuff and do that. It probably comes from when I, used to do a lot more 3D. It was really important to do that kind of thing there. So here, I just kind of practice the same thing. So I've got both of these selected. I'm just going to make these a compound path make. Oops, something didn't work. Or did it? Let me turn these two on. There we go. Okay, so it did work. So there's my frame for my iPhone. For now, I can make this a little bit darker or a little bit lighter. One of the two. I just want to be able to see that it's a separate object. And then, because we're going to have to shade that a little bit. And then let's go back to our layers. And so there's our frame. I'll lock it. And then I'm going to go to, there's our screen mask. I'm going to create another layer for the black area behind the screen. So why don't we, if there's my frame, I'm going to make it right above. Sometimes I don't know specifically what to call things. I just get it as close as I can. Black screen area. And then remember I copied that inner shape. And I'm just going to paste it in place. And we're going to come over here and make it black. So we've got our shape. And then go back to our layers. So that's that black screen area. And we'll lock it down. There's our frame. Here's our mask. I want to turn it on. Unlock it because I want to work on it next. So this is the screen area for our phone. And I'm going to go back to outline mode, Command-Y. And we need to create this little notch out. So remember, the reason what I'm going to do is actually make this screen area match this red area that's in my template. So, because that way I can then use it as a clipping mask to place my other elements inside of, if that makes sense. We'll see that in a few minutes. But now I want to make this, just this shape right here. And, everything is centered. I mean, there isn't anything here that should be off center. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw a rectangle to match that black area. All right. And what I want to do is, I'm actually going to subtract this from this, because I want to notch. This is my master shape right here. The screen outline is my master shape. That's the outline of my screen. And I need to take this black notch out of it. So I do this rectangle to be as close as I can get it. I want to select, both of these shapes. And then let's go to our pathfinders and let's just subtract the front from the background. So now we've got, if I go Command Y, see, we've got this notched out shape. One thing I did not do, and I should have, because I've been harping on it the entire time, is that I really should have made sure that this was centered where I wanted it to be to the artboard. And it wasn't. So there we go. Now we got those both selected, and we'll do a minus front. All right. So there's that. And now we are going to round over our corners. And we're going to do that with our corner widgets, so we know what those are. So let's draw this, select these two, because they're going to be identical. It's a lesser radius. And then we'll select these two. And we have no measurements we've been given to make sure these radiuses match, so we're just going to get them as close as we can. That's probably okay. If I go Command Y, I think that looks pretty reasonable. So now we have finished, well, we haven't finished our iPhone body by any stretch of the imagination. We've still got quite a bit to do. But let's see what all we've got. We zoom in on it, and we've got our screen area and then the body, our highlight. It's about all we really need for the time being for this demo. So we still have buttons to put on the side, camera, speaker, that sort of thing, maybe a shadow at the bottom. But for now, we're just going to kind of leave this as it is. All right. So here's kind of the key to the whole thing. I'm using this as my iPhone body artwork for all of my other two illustrations I need to do. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new document at print, tabloid size, set back to inches, 17 inches by 11 inches, CMYK 300 DPI. And this is going to be my iPhone home screen. And we're just going to create this. And I'll just zoom back a little bit. And now I want to rename my layer 1 to iPhone body. And if I want to, I don't know, maybe I make the note for myself placed. So I'm going to file menu, place. Here's my iPhone body I'm working on. Let's just place it. And then make sure, if I place this off center, for instance, let's just center that up. And now I guarantee it's centered exactly like it is in this other document, because the documents are all the same size. So I'm going to lock this down for the time being, and let's add a new layer above it. And this will be our screen. And we'll save this document right here, iPhone home screen. And now I can go back. So I've placed my iPhone body into my iPhone home screen. And all I really need to worry about in this document is building the screen. So it just kind of helps us manage our layers and manage our elements. So I'm going to go back to body for a moment. And I'm actually going to change this to something bright and obnoxious, something nice and bright green. And then I'm going to select this and copy it. So Command C on my keyboard, edit, copy, and then I am simply going to turn this layer off. All right. Let's save this document again. Come back over to our iPhone home screen, and we get this notice. Some files are missing and modified. Would you like to update them? Yes, we would. When we come back to our home screen, here's our iPhone body again. And what I'm going to do is, on my screen layer that I made, edit, paste in place. And I guarantee that if I hit align center, everything is right where it needs to be. And now I can just build on top of this. And I can do the same thing for my control center. Same document, create. So I've been manually creating templates and that kind of thing, but you can do that any number of ways. But let's just go ahead and place on this layer our iPhone body. Place it, center it, iPhone body, we'll lock that down, create a layer for our screen, and because I haven't copied anything else on my pasteboard yet, I should just be able to go in and say paste in place, and my screen drops right in. And I'll save this. iPhone Control Center. And save that. So the beauty of this is that whenever I go back and make any changes in my iPhone body, those edits are going to be made to this file as well. Okay. So we've made our iPhone body, and then we placed it into our home screen and our control center. So one other thing I kind of want to show you with all this, I'm going to close the control center. We don't need it. I'm not going to do anything else with it, I don't think. But let's take a look at, just to show you, let's take a look at the buttons on the iPhone body. So let's go ahead, and here's our frame. Let's add a new layer for our buttons. And I'm just going to zoom in here. And we're going to make some buttons real quick. And again, like I've been doing so far, I'm not going to put all the detail into it yet. I'm just going to set it up. Just to illustrate a few things. So let's draw our first button here. And I want these buttons to be behind the iPhone frame because I'm just going to kind of overlap stuff here. So let's make these buttons darker than the frame just so we can see them. You know, they've got their own kind of characteristics, but we're going to just kind of place these out about like this. I don't need that much. And then the corners of them, Command Y, yeah, corners of them are rounded. So back in the outline mode here real quick. And I made them a little bit big. I'm just kind of afraid they'll be too small. So let's round the corners of that over just a little bit. And then I'm going to do the same thing to these two buttons down here, except I'm just going to use this button to do that. You go back to my layers. I want to make sure that everything is locked. They are. And then I'm going to select this shape, hold down my Option key, have my selection tool here, hold my Option key, hold down Shift key, and drag this down. Option key is duplicating, Shift key is constraining it. And then I'm going to grab my direct select, grab just these 3 points of the button, and drag this out. So there's that button. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab this one. As I said, I'm not likely going to leave these like this, but because there's too much detail in them, we got a little highlight, little gradation, some things we need to do. So, but this will at least show you what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So let's see. There's those 3 buttons. Quick look. All right, they look good. So let's use this button then to make this button. And I'm going to go back to preview mode. I've selected this button. I'm going to go grab my reflect tool and come over here and place it right on the center point of my phone, because remember, everything's centered off the middle. And if I place that right there over top of that guide, hold down my Option key and click, I get the dialog. See, there's the duplicate. And we're just going to mirror it across the vertical axis. We're going to say copy. That'll leave the one here, but bring our other one over, our new one over here. And I guarantee, because we've taken the time to center everything up, that this will be in exactly the right spot, aside from its vertical position, which we need to edit. Let's grab our direct select tool again, select just these points, drag them down, draw it back. So there we go. We have our side buttons. So remember, I already placed my home screen here. But if I save this now with the buttons in place, I'll come over here to my home screen. Let's give it a minute. There we are. Some files are modified or missing in the links panel. Would you like to update them now? We're going to say yes. There's the edits that I just made to the iPhone body. And if I open my Control Center file, they'll be there as well. So the reason we create the phone body is just to create the artwork once, and then we place it in the other documents. And if we need to go back and make an edit to that body later on, after we've got everything done, we go into that first file that we made, we make the edits there, and then it'll update into our other 2 documents. So it's really just a matter of workflow and making the most of your time and not having to do things more than once. And I kind of got into the habit of doing this sort of stuff just from having to work with, absurd deadlines, which, it's kind of what we do anyway. So, try to be as efficient with the way you build things as you can. Like I said, I just kind of evaluated this whole project when I started and determined that this would probably be the best way to go about it. And I like this way of doing it. You're welcome to create it and copy and paste from one document to another, but really what I'm looking for is this kind of workflow, being smart with the tools. So let's just do a couple other things here real quick, just so I can. So we've got the home screen here, and we brought that outline in to mark that. So now we can create the home screen completely separately as another unit. We don't have to mess around with all of this junk. So if I go back to my document here, I have a home screen that I already built. Let's open this up. Look, that's not what I wanted. Not the home screen control center. The screen background is what I want. Sorry. And I made this already. All right. Just a bunch of circles and gradients. Kind of a big old mess of stuff. But if I come back here to my home screen now, on the screen layer, I can place this file. Here's my screen background. Place it, and I'm just going to kind of draw it out here to be roughly the size I want. I'm going to send it to the back. Object arrange, send to the back. I got that screen selected. I'm going to select my screen outline. Object, clipping mask, make. And here's my screen in place. And the nice thing is that, let's say compositionally, I'm not sure that this is really where it needs to be. That's all right. It's a clipping mask. It's an image in a clipping mask. All I gotta do is double click on it, and I can move this image around and replace it. I can scale it up because it's a piece of vector art, and kind of position this the way I want it. Okay, flexibility. So we've done that. I'm gonna lock that down. Let's hide that, and I'm gonna go back to the original iPhone body. I want to show you something else. So remember, we actually need to create the entire home screen with all the icons on it, the dock, the whole 9 yards. And we have all of that information already in this iPhone body file. So if I were just to hide all these layers and change this to just a normal layer and save it, and now I could come back into my home screen. We'll give it a minute, and I should get my little message. I'll go up here and threaten to do something. That'll always bring it up early. There we are. Some files are missing or modified. Would you like to update them now? Yes. There's that whole iPhone. And now I'm just going to look at I can use it for placement of my icons, but I'm just going to use it right now for the placement of my dock. So I'm in my home screen file. Above the screen, I'm going to add a new layer for the dock. And I am just going to grab my rectangle, kind of draw this out to match. We're just kind of getting it close. And remember, we're centering everything. So I got this drawn out. Let's go ahead and just center it horizontally real quick. Let's fill it with black. And let's round these corners over. And here's my dock. And now I probably want to use my transparency panel. We'll multiply this black into our background. And maybe I'll make it about 55 or 60%, something like that. I don't know. So we just need to be able to see through it, And then we've also got these 3 dots up top. So let's zoom in on those. Don't be afraid to zoom in nice and tight on things if you need to. But I'm just going to draw this large white dot. And then we've got these 2 screened back dots to either side of it. So I'm just going to select it, hold down my Option key and my Shift key, and drag them out. I am going to want these to be centered. So I'm going to select the middle dot, center it, select the 2 of these, and then I want to click on the middle one again. And that should make it a key object so that I can just distribute. That is not the way that's supposed to work. That should have distributed those. So here's the way I'm going to deal with something that's not behaving the way I want it to. I'm just going to select both of these, slide them over a little bit, and I'm going to group them together. Actually, instead of grouping them, I'm going to actually create a compound path out of them because they're always going to behave the same. And then these, I'm also going to center on my artboard and go back to our transparency panel, and we're going to screen those back some. Let's go to 60, I suppose. I don't know, I'm kind of making it up. But now if I come back here to my layers and I turn my screen layer back on, there's my dock and the buttons for it. So I'm still using the original image to create all of these elements, to place all of these elements, I should say, not necessarily create them. So, from here, it's just really placing the icons you've made in their appropriate places, positioning them appropriately, centering them. I mean, everything should always be centered. Placing a type beneath each of them, Remember, I recommended that you don't put the type in with the icons because they don't always fit that 1 inch by 1 inch square size you were given, but I would put the type in this file here. So anyway, I've kind of done that. I mean, I can go ahead and lock that dock down. I'll go back to the iPhone body, turn off my template layer, turn all of my other layers back on, except for that screen. Save it. Come back over here and wait for this to update. There we are. Yes. We have the dock and our screen. And I continue building out from here. I need to go back to my original phone and put the details in there because I didn't put all the details in this. Missing a speaker, missing a camera. The buttons have detail, shading detail that I ignored for the time being. Our outline has breaks in it, that kind of thing. We need to put all that stuff in. But once we're done, we can use this process just to kind of keep things moving right on along. So then remember, when you do the control panel, follow the same process, except that the background of that control panel is actually a screened back home screen. So we complete the home screen, and then we use that for the screen area. And you'll have to, work out how to actually take this entire home screen and blur it like it is. And then you'll build the icons on top of that in the control panel. And, using the processes I use here, figure out how to do those. Or build all your items to that template and size them appropriately when you bring them into this file. I mean, a number of ways you can do it. I'm showing you a way of building multiple files and kind of bringing them all together. So I'm going to stop there, let you do the rest of the detail, and I hope this helps you on the way.